Hi, I'm Beth Lapidus. Welcome to The Infinite Creator. So today I want to talk about navigating emotional overwhelm as a creative person. It's something that comes up over and over and over again as I'm working with people in my own life. And it's a little bit different for creatives than for other people because for us, emotions are part of the gig. And synchronistically, as I was getting ready for this to talk with you about this, I got a little bit distracted by Ezra Klein's New York Times piece about Ulysses, specifically about Ulysses as a trickster, a disruptor. And this sentence really got me. He says, a culture that cannot meet disruption with creativity cannot survive change. It's all there. Creativity, change, disruption, and it's urgent. He gets the urgency of it. And that's the connection between individual emotional overwhelm and cultural overwhelm. That's where it becomes really urgent. How do we meet that disruption? How do we keep making things when it gets overwhelming? So, one answer to those hows is a little bit having to do with who and then later why. So, the who. First, of course, and obviously in the who of the making of the work, we make work for ourselves. Then the who, we make work for our audiences. But there's this bigger who, which is part of the why, the who of the whole culture. And I think of this who as part, it's sort of like a kaleidoscope of creative work that we're each part of. It exists as one, and the whole thing affects everything. It all affects the change, and your piece of it is part of the kaleidoscope that is affecting the whole thing. The overwhelm can come from uncertainty, right? And one part of the uncertainty can come from questioning your impact. So don't forget to add the holographic, holistic, kaleidoscopic life force that you are part of to, your follower count. You are part of helping the planet rebirth with this kaleidoscope of creativity. It's all of us. That's the who. Okay, so listen, the uncertainty that comes from questioning your impact is part of the emotional overwhelm. And sometimes it leads to the thought, never mind, I'll quit. The overwhelm can just be like, never mind, I'll quit. That'll solve it. That'll fix it. I'll just quit. I'll quit the project. I'll quit the whole thing. That's one way to deal with the disruption of emotional overwhelm. Just disrupt the disruption. Quit. And the emotional overwhelm sometimes, though, is in the work itself. But sometimes it's in your finances or in your coffee order or it's in your love life. Quitting is always an option. But what if, just for now, you're willing to take quitting off the table? Maybe you make a deal with yourself. I'll look at it again in 6 months. If that's possible, then the question of how to deal with the disruption, with the emotional overwhelm, it becomes a little more interesting if you can't quit. Then you're really in it, right? So if you can't run, if you can't quit, how do I keep creating when my life is emotionally challenging? All right, so here's the thing. Once upon a time, in my darkest days, during the beginning of my second chance, I asked this uber successful friend of mine, do you have any strategies? What do you do when you're trying to work and you're feeling emotionally distraught? And he said he did have a strategy, and his strategy was compartmentalization. Huh. I literally had never thought of that. Interesting. So I tried it. I'm not exactly sure even now what I tried when I tried it. Maybe like hyper focus, imaginary blinders. I know that I was definitely still driving while crying during this time. So I know I wasn't great at compartmentalizing yet. But sometimes I could pretend that the task at hand was the only thing that existed. And it did help. That is a kind of compartmentalization, right? But here's the thing, pretending that the task at hand is the only thing when your work is creative, and I'm talking when I say when your work is creative, all of it, right? Like stand-up, storytelling, memoir, photography, painting, filmmaking, gaming, if your business is very personal and creative, all of it, when you're putting yourself into your work, when your story is part of your work, if you compartmentalize your story and your emotions out of your work, if your life is part of your work, if your emotional life is, if your emotional overwhelm keeps you from your work, if those things are in a lockbox while you're working, what is there to make work about? So when I first tried it in those hard years, honestly, they were not the best years of my work looking back, but I did know I was rebuilding and I did just keep trying. One of the things that kept me going was I knew I had been given a second chance. And by the way, now I realize we always say given a second chance because you can take a chance, but a second chance, that's a matter of grace. It's a gift. You can't take a second chance. You can only be given it. And since I had been given this gift, I felt some responsibility to make the most of it. It was why I wanted to compartmentalize, so I could show up for the tedious parts of the creative work, the parts that emotions didn't help, so I could show up and lay a foundation without having to feel like every little feeling all the time. While I was doing this, I made this new rule for myself: don't waste a crisis. Really show up for this time, be willing to change. And compartmentalizing did help me do that because sometimes I could be in the feeling and sometimes I could be doing the other work. It's back and forth. But one day I realized I'd come up with kind of a workaround, and it was like I'd been compartmentalizing inside a shipping container. You know how they turn shipping containers into houses? It's so cool. I'm so obsessed with those. Anyway, it was like I had built a house out of a shipping container and I'd put windows inside it. I'd compartmentalize, but like not totally. I'd built walls, but it was almost like the walls were there in order to build the windows. The windows weren't like accidentally there. It was the window building. I know it's a little complicated, but that's, I think, what exactly happened that helped me. It isn't about this lockbox level of boundaries, and it isn't about feeling everything all the time either. It's something in the middle path. It's about learning which window to open and when, which ones can you throw wide open, which windows can you peek through, and which windows do you need to like draw the blinds, shut the curtains, and even like lock the shutters down. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, sometimes creativity requires access to your feelings, and sometimes it requires protection from them. The practice is knowing which is right for you at any given moment. And it is a practice. We do have to practice. We have to practice so we can become the singular, particular piece of the swirling, kaleidoscopic thing, the thing that we're all a piece of, the meaning-making, beauty-boosting, culture-changing thing that's all of us. You practice because we need you here in our gloom with a view. So reach out if you have any questions, and of course, my kaleidoscope lights up when you like, follow, share, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. For now, I'm Beth Lapidus.